Hello everyone, welcome back to Behind the Pages with Maggie, breaking barriers one story at a time. Today, I welcome you to episode 35, where we'll be reading the second part and our last part of the story, Almost to Freedom, written by Vonda Michelle Nelson and illustrated by Colin Bootman. Now, from my recollection, I remember in our last episode, episode 34, where we read the first part of the story, Lindy, the little girl, and her doll Sally, as well as their mama and Mr. Henry, the papa, they have just escaped from the plantation in Virginia. So in this episode, we'll be finding out whether they, as a family, have made it to the north and where they can enjoy their freedom. So without further ado, let's get into the story. So this is the last part where we left it in last week's episode. I'm just going to read the last sentence and we're going to get into the story. A white man wearing glasses steps out of the dark. He motions us to follow him to the back of the house. Inside the kitchen, a woman with silver hair opens a door to a storeroom. The man lifts up a rug, takes some boards from the floor, and uncovers a ladder leading into pitch darkness. It's small and a mite chilly, the man says, but it's the safest place we've got. He hands Miss Rachel a lantern. I've put blankets and water down there, and I'll get you some food, the woman says. Much obliged, ma'am, Mr. Herring says, and he climbs down the ladder. The woman holds Lindy a pillow. Miss Rachel's friend who worked in the big house told us about pillows, but I never seen one. The secret room is tiny, but not much smaller than the shack Master had us in. Miss Rachel spreads 2 blankets on the dirt floor, and everybody except me takes some water. Lindy lays me on the pillow. It's the softest thing, like a cloud from heaven. The silver-haired woman hands down a stew pot, bowls, some bread and cheese. Then she closes up the floor. Miss Rachel serves up supper. Nobody talks. Too tired, too scared. They sop up the last of the stew with bread. Sleep now, Papa says to Lindy and me. Lindy whispers she needs to make water. Mr. Henry points to a bucket in the corner. Privy be too dangerous. After, Lindy holds me close like always. She lays her head on that pillow and smiles. Night, Sally, she whispers. We almost to freedom. If I could, I'd have smiled too. Seems like we just get to sleep and Miss Rachel's shaking Lindy. Come on, baby, quick. Why? Lindy asks. Slave catchers, Mr. Henry whispers, blowing out the lantern. Lindy ties me round her waist. I guess sleep still has her 'cause the knot ain't tight. Miss Rachel tucks some bread and cheese in her apron, and she and Lindy follow Mr. Henry up the ladder. They're scrambling fast, and I feel myself slipping. Then I'm falling till I hit that dirt floor. Lindy calls my name. The silver-haired woman is closing up the floor. Lindy, wait! But she can't hear me, 'cause I ain't got no voice. The boards shut out the light. When the floorboards open again, sunlight shines in. The silver-haired woman comes down the ladder. There you are, she says, picking me up. Your little mama didn't want you to leave. She straightens my hair. There just wasn't time. She sets me on a blanket and tucks me around. Sleep tight, she says, and carries a lantern and privy bucket up the ladder. Then she closes the door. If I could have made tears, then blankets would have been wet clean through. I want Lindy, but I know she ain't coming back. Can't. The loneliness swallows me up. I give a lot of time to thinking about Lindy and her folks, where they were, and if they ever got to freedom like they were wanting. I give a lot of time to praying they did, and I give a lot of time to grieving for myself. I wish the silver-haired woman would come, but she don't. Nobody comes. After a spell, I'm thinking maybe slave catchers is watching this house. Maybe the hiding place ain't safe. Maybe I'll lay right here for the rest of my days. By and by, a mouse scurries over my face and into a corner. I'm glad to have the company. I pass the time listening to Miss Mouse making herself a nest and raising her youngs. I'm sorry when they finally go, 'cause I get to feeling lonely again. I get to thinking that I best stop hoping. Then one day, praise the Lord, the board's being moved. Somebody's coming down the ladder. If I'd of flesh and blood heart, I would have been pounding like Lindy's that night we run off. I see light from a lantern, and a woman wrapping up a little girl in a blanket. The child's shivering, more scared, I think, than cold. Her eyes look tired and tearful. The woman picks me up and says, "Willa, darling, this must be the dolly the missus was mentioning." She blows the dust off my face and holds me closer to the lantern. "Mighty fine stitching. Can I keep her?" the girl asks. Her mama nods, and Willa hugs me so hard I think my insides will burst out my seams. Two men come down the ladder. They talk about going north to freedom. Their faces serious in the lamplight. When they settle in for sleeping, Willa holds me in her arms and whispers, "Your name Belinda. We gonna be best friends." Belinda. I like that. Sounds like Lindy. My face don't change, but I snarls inside, remembering the crackling of the straw mattress when Lindy will roll over me in her sleep. I sure do miss her, but I'm mighty glad to be Willa's doll baby. It's a right important job. So this is the author's notes that I think it will be really good to have a read. I was inspired to write Almost to Freedom during a visit to the Museum of International Folk Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. There, a display of black rag dolls from the 1800s and 1900s immediately caught my attention. The majority of the dolls were entirely handmade from scrap cloth. My husband read from the museum guidebook. A few were said to have been found in one of the hideouts of the Underground Railroads, suggesting their use by black children. As I admired the exhibit, my husband leaned in close and whispered, "There's a story in that." Yes, I thought, if only those dolls could talk. The Underground Railroad was most active between 1830 and the beginning of the Civil War in 1861. This was not a real railroad with trains that traveled beneath the earth. It was a secret network of courageous people, black and white, who worked together to help slaves steal away to freedom in northern and western states and to Canada. No one person knew the entire system of escape routes and safe houses, and some details remain unknown to this day. Dedicated individuals like the boatman, the silver-haired woman and her husband, risked much to be part of this movement. Runaways faced even greater dangers. Although some were transported by ship, wagon, or train, most traveled on foot through woods, swamps, fields, and rivers, often pursued by slave catchers with dogs. Some slaves reached freedom, others were caught, returned to their masters, and punished severely. Many captured runaways were shipped savagely or sold, never to see their families again. Some were fitted with iron collars, painfully shackled, or had their toes cut off to keep them from running away again. Still, thousands of slaves escaped through the Underground Railroad. So this is the end of Almost a Freedom, and I hope through this story you can, as a listener and a reader, I hope you can gain just a better understanding of the struggle that many slaves and the people who were dedicated to pushing this movement and helping them get to their freedom realize how courageous they were in doing so. I hope this broadened your views and broaden your horizons in terms of historical events. And I encourage you to reach out to more stories like this so that you can build an even deeper understanding of this part of history that is just atrocious and should never have happened, but it did. So as humans, I think we should do our best to learn from the past so that history doesn't repeat itself again in the future. Thank you very much for joining me today in episode 35 of Behind the Pages with Maggie, breaking barriers one story at a time. Goodbye for now.